Hey everybody, JayC here, and welcome to another Thursday night live stream. And I'm going to be bringing a guest in here in a minute with me, Matt Big Nerdy from Nerdzoic, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like running a toy store in 2023. So I find that kind of thing very fascinating, just like the business end of a lot of this stuff, and so hopefully you guys will too, and if you got questions for him and everything. But let's go on and bring him in here.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, Matt?
Look at that. That was painless.
Yeah, so far so good. No technical issues on either of our ends, so hopefully this will be a smooth sailing live stream.
We shall see. I have a penchant for having at least one technical issue per live stream, so give it time.
Yeah. So before we get into anything, let's just take a quick roll call here, see who's in the house. So we've got Quinn's Comics. So what's up, my man? He's a regular on the show. And Blake, another regular. Let's see who else we got here. We got Collector Verse. What's up? Any news on Batman 66 line from McFarlane? As far as we just got that one wave not too long ago with the robot and the Superman and stuff, but I don't think there's been anything more since that. Let's see. Rashid's in the house. What's up? Mr. Allmine, what's up? Says, what's up, Nerdzoic?
What up?
Adam Shaggy Craig's in the house. What's up? Jerry's in the house. What's up? All right, so like I said, I thought kind of today would be cool if we just kind of chatted about, you run, for those who don't know you. So first of all, you have your own YouTube channel, which, if I'm not mistaken, you started doing YouTube before you opened your store?
I did.
Okay. So what got you into this hobby to begin with? I mean, why did you decide to do a YouTube channel?
Yeah, so if you want to go to the hobby end, if you go way back, we're talking 1998. I went down to my friend's basement, which is always a cool way to start a story. But I got down there and he had Power of the Force 2 stuff plastering everything. And just the look of all that stuff on card. And I was hooked immediately. I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. And I immediately was like, hey, I need more hours at my high school job of Friendlies. And I started waiting more tables just to get more money for toys. And that's really what started me there. YouTube, it's interesting. I had my little hiatus from collecting in the early 2010s, we'll call it. I got back into it in 2018. And in 2020, I was laid off like so many others, and I had nothing else to do. And I wanted to learn audio video stuff for other ventures. And I did this just because I'm like, okay, it'll be a little bit easier for me to talk in front of a camera about things I actually care about. So I did it, and it went really well, better than I ever expected. My whole goal was to someday hit 1,000 subscribers, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I'll hit 10,000, and it's just been great.
So okay, so you wanted to do video and learn the video end and stuff, but why? I mean, there's probably, we both love action figures, but there's probably other topics out there that someone on YouTube could hit that's going to bring them a larger audience. Why did you choose to focus your channel on action figures and collecting and stuff?
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget how small our little group is. But yeah, so initially my plan was to get into, I spent 24 years working in restaurants, and I wanted to get into restaurant consulting. And my grand plan was, okay, I'll build a YouTube channel around it to try to attract restaurant owners and get consulting gigs that way and get out of working for other people. But with the pandemic, it quickly became evident that restaurants were completely in bad shape. And in fact, for the longest time, one of my dreams was to own my own restaurant. And I kind of came to the conclusion during that, after watching so many get shut down, just because, how do you prepare for that? I'm like, oh, wow, that's a poor business model now. I don't want to do that. So I pivoted to toys, and my initial plan was to actually use this just to learn the process and then do other things. And I did do some other things. Like there's some leadership and management videos out there somewhere with my face on them. But it's just not fun. I didn't really enjoy it. And I've been planning for years to do something else on YouTube. And one day I will. I swear. I've been like, oh, I just got to upgrade this microphone, then I'll do it, or this camera. And the store can't kind of was like the idea of, okay, how do I get out of having to work for other people? Or at the very least, my wife and I were both full-time employed. It was, how does one of us get off working so that we can have one stay-at-home parent? So the initial goal with the store was, okay, if we can build our sales to a level that she doesn't have to work, that'll be great. And that happened in a couple of months. Now we both do this full-time. And that's pretty much it. I've kind of looked at expanding into other things outside of toys, going more the comic route, the entertainment route. But honestly, it's exhausting seeing how divisive everybody is about everything.
Yeah.
And like, I just want to chill, man. I want to chill, have a drink with people, talk to people about stuff we care about. The last thing I want to do is like really dive deep down into minute little things. And honestly, like I've actually kind of stopped doing a lot of that on YouTube just because I'm like, nah, I don't want to be divisive at all. I just want to talk about toys. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think people don't realize, like, as a creator, it's hard to come up with content that's going to be interesting enough that people are going to tune into on a regular basis. But like sometimes you got to balance that fine line, because sadly it is often the drama that brings people to watch videos. And it's like, okay, I want to talk about this, but I don't want it, I don't want to over dramatize it, or I don't want to end up like talking, crap about, or, about somebody or something as I'm trying to talk about this. So it can be it's like a fine line that you got. Cause like,
Yes.
I mean, some people like, they'll just, I mean, if you're just like focusing on doing reviews, that's great. But when you get more into like the news and just wanting to talk about things that go on in the hobby itself, like you don't want to go too negative, but sometimes, you don't want to go too positive either. And it's just kind of that hard fine line to kind of navigate.
It really is. And like, I kind of got out of doing any sort of review talk because I felt like it was very condescending. Like, here's a review. Everything's great. Buy it from me. So I didn't want to do that, because who could take review credibility from the guy selling it? So I stopped doing those.
And I don't know if you know this, but like, this is going back 20 years, but when I first started my websites, the idea was like, when I was in high school and college, I wanted to open my own comic book / toy store. And so my first website was called American Dream Comics and Collectibles. And I was fresh out of college. I didn't have any capital to invest in opening up a physical store or anything like that. And of course, like I said, this was 20 plus years ago, and things like eBay were brand new to the scene and stuff. So there wasn't a lot of people selling toys online back then. And I was like, well, I don't have the money to open up a concrete store, but I've got like all this stuff that I've collected, I've had boxes of I have enough comics to, fill an entire store, and I had toys too. So I was like, I'm just going to start selling online and create a storefront. And that's what I started to do. And it actually started to take off pretty good, to the point where it was getting so much where, I was just doing it myself. And I was like, I'm either going to have to figure out a way to be able to hire people, or, I'm not going to be able to maintain it. And at that point, I had started doing the news. Like, I was heavily influenced by things like Toy Fair magazine and stuff. But at the time, again, there wasn't a lot online. There was a few Star Wars fan sites and stuff. So I started to do the news, and that really started to take off. But I realized pretty quickly that it's hard to do news. It's like, if you're doing news about a product that you're also selling, there tends to be kind of like this conflict of interest and stuff. And so I basically just ended up going off on the news side, and here we are today. But my original dream was to open a comic book and toy store. So,
it's funny. We're kind of backwards in that. When I started getting into this stuff, my plan was to like build an army of websites across various things. I did not plan on going into the e-commerce thing. That just kind of fell into me.
So 2020, you started doing the YouTube. About how long after that was it that you started the sell stuff? And was it just like, okay, I'm just going to start selling stuff like on eBay and stuff, or did you intend to open up Nerdzoic and have a fully functioning, e-tailer toy website?
It's funny when I look back now, because I kind of wonder, like, man, I had some big guts back then, because I kind of walked into it. It was New Year's Eve of 2020 going into 21, and I was talking to my friends who own a coffee roastery here. They actually worked for me in college. And they're like, yeah, man, you're doing really well. You need to figure out a way to turn this into a full-time gig. And I'm like, listen, the full-time income in such a small niche is small unless you're selling the stuff. And the guy was like, well, then sell the stuff. And it never even really was something that crossed my mind. So I started trying to figure out, like, okay, what's the model of this look like? This was, I believe, after the collapse or in the middle of the collapse of Megalopolis. And I looked at them as kind of like the blueprint of how to do it right and wrong, because it seemed like they had the sales, but they didn't have the ability to translate that into cash flow or run it in a profitable manner. And honestly, that's what I'm good at. I've been running restaurants forever with like $8 an hour, $6 an hour, whatever it was when I started employees, and dealing with ridiculously slim product margins in diners. So I kind of knew that. So I started off getting one account, and my initial thought was like, okay, I'll just start off with Black Series and Marvel Legends. And I kept doing it. And then I was like, you know what? I should try something else. And I just kept trying new thing after new thing after new thing. And now it's gotten to the point where I try to have everything that the basic middle-aged-ish action figure collector would want. I kind of use the philosophy of, if I think it's cool, then I should probably be carrying that line. And that's kind of how I go about it. And it's difficult because you have to balance the capital, figure out a way to do that. And there's a lot of moving parts to that with pre-orders. And some companies want pre-order money up front or half of it up front. And then, honestly, the biggest issue of a daily basis, which is space. It's all been very interesting in that sense, but it just kind of went from there. I went back to work in 2021. Yeah, for about a year. It was the worst job of my life. When they hired me, they paid me an astronomical sum of money without ever even seeing me on a Zoom call. It was like 2 10-minute interviews. And I looked at my wife and I said, oh, this is going to be a complete nightmare. If they're paying me this much money, they didn't check references, they didn't do anything. And I'm like, who else did they hire for this? It was a warehouse startup to do third-party logistics for Saks Fifth Avenue. And it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, a complete train wreck. And by the end of the first year, I was like, I can't do this. Like, it was just really rough. So I ended up quitting that with the plan of getting another job by the end of 2022. But when your resume says you own a business, nobody wants you for a full-time career-like job. It was, every single interview started off with, why are you here? And I'd have to answer like, well, it's kind of hard to build a business. And nobody wanted to take that risk. So, come early 2020, come whenever it was. Oh, it was early this year. Early this year, my wife asked me to stop looking for a job. And I'm like, are you nuts? It's right after Christmas. Our sales are going to drop off the map. And they didn't. They fell right. They were immediately. They kept going. So I've not had to work since. And I don't see any reason to have to work anytime soon unless I need to fund some extra capital.
You better be knocking on some wood when you say that.
I'm never afraid to work though, so that's fine.
I've learned, like, one of the downsides to doing, like, so when I started the sites, I started out working a full job. I was a loan officer at a credit union, and as the sites grew, I went from part-time and then eventually was able to quit and do this full-time. And if you'd asked me when I started these sites 20 years ago if I'd still be doing it now, I would have told you probably not. So it's amazing I've lasted this long. But there is very little security in doing this because you never know when things are going to really go south. And when they go south, they can go south very quickly. And, I mean, you sell product, my revenue is generated through advertising. And but there is a correlation because when people aren't able to sell things, then they start cutting back. And one of the first things they generally cut back are their advertising budgets and things get tight. But one thing about working for and I think this is probably true for any kind of small business, self-employed small business, is there's just not the security there that there might be if you were working at a large company and such. But
yeah, I miss that. I really miss security. I miss I do miss the good health insurance, not we're self-employed, so we got to get what we can afford health insurance for sure.
yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And and for you, I noticed I've been reading your websites for probably a decade, the toy news and Marvelicious at least. And or Marvelous News. Well, I'm going crazy. But anyway, I noticed you don't even use the ad network. So you're doing it the hard way, it looks like. Actually getting ads yourself.
No, well, we do use an ad network, but I didn't start out using an ad network. My very first sponsor was Big Bad Toy Store, and they've been a sponsor ever from day one, basically. So in those early days, it was just toy retailers and stuff that would, and they frankly they weren't paying a lot in the world of advertising. They were not paying tons of money, but these days, at times we've used Google advertising, even though Google doesn't pay that great. And, we use another ad network. And then in recent years, affiliate advertising has become very popular, which I was always very resistant to wanting to accept affiliate advertising, but it's actually, it hasn't been too bad, and I think you see a lot of people now that they've taken to social media and everyone's passing around their affiliate links to retailers, Walmart, Target, things like that. But yeah, we do. And I know a lot of people will say, oh man, your ads are annoying. And I agree. I hate, and I've always resisted things like pop-up ads. I've tried to keep pop-up ads and stuff off my sites, but unfortunately it's just the only way to pay the bills and keep the lights on.
That's the name of the game, right? I'm in the internet marketing thing too. I know that level. We probably use the same ad networks. I think I use a terrible one for my other sites. But yeah, it's rough. And that's one of the other reasons I opened the store is I saw where affiliates seemed like it was heading, especially when Amazon did their big cut of percentages in 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The truth to affiliate marketing is once these companies no longer need you, there's no reason to keep you. And honestly, affiliate marketing in toys and collectibles, it's not great. If you're in software is the way to be, or finance, but not toys.
Yeah. Well, places like Walmart, they're hard. You're lucky if you make 2% off of whatever it's ridiculous.
Oh, it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
So so here you are, you do still operate out of your home, correct?
Mostly. I've had to I have adjoining buildings at this point. So we have a office building that we use as annex storage, which is slowly filling. So I might have to annex the unit next door. That's an office building that's inside of a storage unit park that they couldn't rent out to anybody. They basically begged me. They're like, we didn't put a bathroom in, so nobody wants this. And I'm like, I'll take it. Discount that baby. So now I have that, but it's not it's something you can ship out of. We're slowly moving to the point where we're just going to ship out of the house and I have to go get stuff to click orders. It's one of those things I have a very pessimistic view of the economy right now, so I don't want to overextend anything.
I understand. Yeah, I tend to share that same view. Next year, I fear is not going to be a great year, but hopefully I'm wrong on that.
But I thought the same thing about this year, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's true. Frankly, when we went into the pandemic, I was like, oh man, this is going to be horrible. And while the pandemic itself is obviously horrible, because everyone ended up sheltering in place and spent all their time online, it actually ended up being pretty good for online traffic and online advertising.
Well,
But it
more
definitely,
more than you know.
yeah,
That's what put a lot of stores out. They looked at their 2020 numbers and they said, well, this is the new norm for e-commerce. And it wasn't.
yeah. Well, that's why, and a lot of people don't understand. I think when it comes to like, they're seeing all these discounts and stuff at like Ollie's and stuff, and a lot of that is really still just carryover for the stores that had upped their orders during the pandemic and then didn't for whatever. And to me, it seems kind of ridiculous that you would have thought things would have stayed
Yeah.
at the heights that they were. But, basically, there's that gap between, okay, sales are declining. We got to pull back how much we're producing. But, oh shit, we got all this product that didn't get moved and now we got to clearance it out. And so now it's being shipped off to places like Ollie's and Ross and stuff. But
I mean,
I
and
think
they've been trying to ship it off for years now. A lot of
yeah.
it.
And I think I heard you may be one of the first ones I heard say it publicly, but like next year, we probably can expect things to become much harder to get because toy companies are going to be producing their products in much smaller numbers now. So we're kind of going to go back to that scarcity tape market where if you don't pre-order it right away, you might not get a chance to get it.
There'll be a lot of complaining, and it's already starting to happen as far as the scarcity goes. I was shorted a bunch of Black Series Phase 2 clone troopers from one of my distributors, and I had to scramble. And it took me like half a day to find somebody who had some to get them because the cut has not been, it's no joke. They've cut hard. Now, I'm kind of surprised we haven't felt it yet, but I think we're going to feel it pretty hard from a lot of companies. And honestly, like when you have to ship your product off to places like Ollie's, you're just devaluing your product. You're making it so people are going to pay full price, whether it's $20, $25, or anything.
Right, because they're going to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to wait until it goes on discount. I'm not going to pay full price, especially as the prices have gone up and things have become so expensive. People are just waiting for it to go on discount, which, I mean, you can't blame them. But it's probably long-term not good for the industry or the hobby. But
no, I mean, we've seen some companies be really quick and nimble with it. McFarlane's probably the best example. A year ago, their stuff, you couldn't give it away. People would be like, no, you pay me, then I take it. Like, it was awful. Like, I had to donate a large stock of the Batman movie, and I forget, there was another wave or two that were so terrible. I couldn't even sell them for $5 a figure. They were all toys for tots. They were just terrible. But now, if you take a look, and Big Bad Toy Store is no one ever mistaken. They are the epicenter of the industry. What they do, the rest of us follow. They're selling out of waves quickly because they cut their orders. But also, McFarlane cut his orders. He cut the quantities down hardcore. And now we're seeing, I never saw this in stores, and a lot of it's never even making it to stores.
Well, the other thing I've been noticing is a lot of store exclusives are ending up like you and several other e-tailers just today listed that Target exclusive Marvel Legend tracksuit Mafia figure. And I'm seeing, lots of like all the McFarlane store figures I'm seeing popping up on Amazon now. And like I said, a lot of the Hasbro stuff that was exclusive at Target or what have you is now showing up at Big Bad or your store, things like that. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing when that happens.
I think it's a good thing because most of the time, so like the back end of that is the stores that distribute these exclusive, and I'm specifically talking about Target and Walmart. They suck at it. Like there's no other way to say it. They put no care into it whatsoever. So Hasbro at some point has to go to other places to get this stuff distributed. I had people emailing me today about that Tracksuit Mafia guy, and they're telling me that they've had it on pre-order for like a year and a half with Target, and they've never gotten it. And it's crazy to me. Now, it's interesting because nobody expected the Tracksuit Mafia to be an issue. Like today, it went up out of nowhere. Nobody knew about it except Entertainment Earth's drop page. Like I follow that. You actually clued me into their drop zone, and I use that as one of my sources. But I saw that today, and I'm just like, the hell is this? And I talked to every sales rep I know, every inside contact, and everyone's like, nah, man, that's nothing. That can't be anything. And then it came up and we all scrambled. Big Bad 2, they didn't have it up at 1 o'clock, which means it took them off guard. So things like that happen. Last year, I was able to score all sorts of things that were exclusives. And that's honestly one of the things that made my store. I was getting Cobra Island Troopers, 212th Troopers, that entire Clone Wars, Mace Windu, General Grievous, ARC Trooper wave. I got all of that in way before any of the other stores because, from what I understand, the big box stores try lowering their numbers after they gave their initial numbers. Hasbro had all this extra, so they went anywhere they could to get rid of it.
Yeah. Well, like Target, like even brand new product that they're just now putting up for pre-order, like on their website, a lot of it you're already seeing is like discounted. It's like it just went up for pre-order. You're already discounting it. It's like, why are you doing that? But I guess they just want to get it out of it. Because like you say, I don't think they really care. And if they take a loss on it, it's not a big loss for them. But
yeah, I've never looked at like Target and Walmart even as competition. Like I don't worry too much about them. One of the reasons I got into this is because I think that sooner or later they're going to end up stopping to carry toys because it's not profitable for them. They lose money. The question is, are they drawing traffic into the stores? If they find out that it's not drawing traffic into the stores, there is no reason for them to waste their money on it.
Well, I like, you know, they keep doing these collector events, you know, and it's like, why? Especially when like you do them and then like half the time you cancel people's orders, or if you do ship it out, you're like shipping it out in envelopes and stuff, and yet you're classifying it as collector oriented. So you know who you're trying to target with these, but yet at the same time you're basically just saying, you know, screw you.
Yep.
I don't really give a crap. So it just amazes me. I don't know why they keep trying. I mean, I kind of understood it when they were doing it during the pandemic and everything was online and stuff, but like they continue to do those things, and I'm like, why you keep doing this? It just doesn't seem to work very well. And it,
yeah. No, and like, you know, Hasbro's been taking the loss on a lot of it, and they don't say it publicly or anything. But when these stores turn down part of what they initially give up, what they asked for, Hasbro stuck with it. And then you end up seeing the discounts, then you end up seeing the ollies. And, you know, and that's one of the reasons I think you see things like Hasbro Pulse because of the problem with traditional brick and mortar. From what I'm told, the most profitable part of Hasbro's action figure divisions is the fan channel, which would be Hasbro Pulse, Big Bad EE, me, all of the different distributors that distribute the comic shops. We're the only ones who are up in sales. Everybody else is down.
yeah, the adult market, I guess.
Yeah, God, I hate that word.
Now, you don't consider Walmart and Target competition, but you know, you brought up Hasbro Pulse, and it's something I heard you talking about the other week in that Shartimus Prime live stream, and this is something I've talked about in my live streams before as well. But how much of a competitor and how much does it irk you that you're seeing more and more toy manufacturers essentially trying to compete with businesses like yours by selling directly to the consumer? And I mean, Hasbro Pulse is probably the biggest and the most annoying about it because they basically have turned their live streams where they're giving you information about their products into commercials for Hasbro Pulse. But obviously, you know, McFarlane in the McFarlane store, NECA in the NECA store. And I've noticed like lately, everything seems to be going up for NECA, seems to be going up on the NECA store. It's like they're not even going up other places. They're just going up on the NECA store. So Super 7 and Super 7 does that where like if you order the wave through us, we'll throw in this extra bonus item as opposed to going through one of the e-tailers. And I don't think a lot of people understand that for a manufacturer's primary customer isn't really the direct consumer. It's the retailer who then sells it to the consumer. And so, you know, again, there's really just this where the manufacturer is now competing against their own customers. And I know I think I heard you say, and I've talked to other e-tailers who were told the same thing, that like Hasbro tried to assure everybody that this wasn't going to cut into your market or whatever. But I don't see how that really seems to.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Hasbro Pulse is a huge problem. Absolutely. And I gotta tell you, like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't consider making that video of don't shop at Hasbro Pulse, here's why. And really, it's them that I want to do it on more than anybody else, because all the other ones are a little bit different. Most of them recognize that they're not even manufacturers, they're toy developers. They're not distributors. Most of them are going to fall on their face trying to do their just trying to do their thing where they do the whole distribution themselves. Most of them are trying to outsource it, which is expensive and really bad for customer experience. In fact, I told you that I was working for a third-party logistics company I guess almost 2 years ago now. The last week I was there, the Hasbro Pulse team was in to do a tour of our facility at Saks Fifth Avenue to see if we were interested in being their third-party company. I was hoping that the company I was with would get the contract, because then I knew they would do terrible. I'm like, oh, this will be a disaster. This will be great for me. Like, I knew that it was going to be a disaster. Unfortunately, the VP came to me and he's like, do I want to work with these people? And like, I can't lie. So I'm just like, here's what you're going to deal with. And I told him about like packaging and condition and all of the stuff that we deal with. And he's like, oh, I don't want to touch any of that. And that was the end of that. But like, they're not made for this. If they want to try to, like, there's very few businesses that have been successful creating multiple divisions of completely different markets. Sure, there's Amazon, but then you look at others who've tried it, and there's a million examples who failed. Luckily, I think consumers are pretty smart. I think that, I'm looking at Mr. Cheeseburger there. Competition is good for consumers. I agree. Like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about how I can be better than Hasbro Pulse. And there's definitely reasons that I can be. There's reasons that Big Bad can be. Big Bad has Pile of Loot, which is, in my opinion, the greatest innovation in all of collecting. Like, that was genius. I saw Joel, the owner of Big Bad, at Toy Fair, and I was just like, bro, whoever thought of that? Like, that was genius. And I've been spending the better half of 2 years trying to make it work on my site. And I'm almost there, to the point where I think I can roll it out in January. And like, Hasbro Pulse will never be able to do something like that. They can't manage it. You look at variety. Hasbro can't offer other companies. And in reality, Hasbro doesn't even want to be a toy manufacturer anymore. They're out there trying to give their license to everybody who will take it, which, by the way, Hasbro, I really want the Cops license. I don't know anything about making toys, but I'll call the Four Horsemen or NECA and be like, hey guys, let's work on this. I don't worry too much about them. McFarlane's store, it's weird. Like, I stopped carrying their product because I thought they devalued it too much. Then I started carrying it again because I saw an increase in quality. And I also started talking with people in the company, and I really like them. Like, it just came down to, I like the way they do business. And because of that, I started carrying their product again. But I don't worry too much about them for the same reason as Hasbro Pulse. I don't think McFarlane's going to ever really try to screw over people like BBTS. BBTS really carries the action figure market. If BBTS went under, that would hurt everybody. They make Entertainment Earth look like crap if it wasn't for their having the wholesale site. Right. That's just kind of the way it goes. And I think that is, I look at NECA. NECA seems to only be doing it with certain products. I think they know their limitations. They have a hard time staffing their wholesale warehouse. And NECA's great. I absolutely love them. I can't say a negative word about them. I wish they'd give the exclusives a little bit more love around. But, that's just kind of part of the game. If they think they can that's make a little bit more to make their company profitable, I can't fault them for that, as long as they're looking out for everybody. When the companies stop looking out for the retailers that made them, That's where I get concerned. Hasbro's starting to look that way, right? Whereas NECA, no, not so much. McFarlane, not as much. You look at a place like a smaller place like the Four Horsemen. They do a fantastic job of taking care of their customers, and they do most of their sales through direct. So they're fantastic. Uh, I think it really just comes down to how they really take care of their customers in the end. And in the end, I think the action figure like future is actually pretty bright. But I do think we're going to see a lot of kind of like you talked about the Toy Fair era, 2005, 2006. We're going to see a lot of companies come and go in the next couple of years. So back in that era, we saw Toy Biz die. We saw Palisades die. There's another big one that's slipping my memory. But I think we're going to see that again. I think we're going to see some big companies fail. It's not going to be the big two. It's not going to be Hasbro. It's not going to be Mattel. But I think we're going to see that. And I'm hoping that most retailers, I know I am, are wary of that and keep their inventory levels at a manageable level so that they don't end up with a ton of dead product from a company that dies.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you said it, but I've said this before. I think Hasbro, and I wouldn't be surprised if the only other company that might follow that is Mattel, but which they have to some extent, but is moving to, instead of making the toys themselves, is licensing out to other companies. And I honestly, I mean, if it wasn't for Disney, I mean, that's Hasbro doesn't want to let go of Star Wars, Marvel, and that Disney stuff. But if it wasn't for that, I think they would totally basically move away from manufacturing toys and just license them out to other companies like Super 7 and stuff. That just seems to be where they have been heading the last couple of years. And I really wouldn't be surprised if in the next 5 years or so that they kind of totally just quit making at least action figures. When we get into some of the other like board games and the more like baby stuff and kid, very young kid stuff, that might be different. But
and it's super profitable, that stuff. Whew.
Yeah. But action figures, they definitely seem to be moving in that direction. The McFarlane stuff, like the biggest problem, like the reason why I wouldn't buy from the McFarlane store unless it was an exclusive I really wanted, was their shipping is just so outrageously expensive. Yeah, it's like $20 to like ship.
What?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Their shipping is horrible. I mean, I don't know what Hasbro pulls shipping. I mean, I know if you pay them $50 for their premium membership, you get the free shipping, and I think they have free shipping over orders over a certain amount.
Yeah.
I want to say like $80 or something like that. But yeah, McFarlane shipping is just, I think most people will stay away from a McFarlane store unless they find a way to bring their shipping cost down.
Yeah. That's interesting because they're obviously building profit into their shipping costs, which is an interesting way to do it, I guess. Yeah. But hey, whatever makes you happy. Like, one of my philosophies is I charge the lowest price I think I can charge, which is usually MSRP. Hasbro, I charge $1 over. But I charge the exact shipping as it is. If it just so happens that you underpay, that's my problem. I deal with it. If you overpay, there's a million people out there with gift credits to my store because I'm like, hey, you overpaid by $3. Here you go. And I think that that's the right way to do it. But I won't lie. Like I've thought about like increasing my pricing and going free shipping, but I don't know that benefits everybody. Because like, there's the old joke of like $20, but $8 shipping. What a ripoff. But then the same product, $30 with free shipping. What a deal.
Right. Well, and I do think, like you talked about Big Bad Toy Store and their pile of loot, sometimes people will complain, well, why is Big Bad Toy Store like $1 or $2 more than other places? And I think, it's in part because of the $4 shipping, it's kind of a give and take, is with that. So, you're paying a couple extra bucks for the actual product, but you're getting that money back with the shipping in general.
It all balances out. Like I could today bring my prices to the exact level of Big Bad Toy Store with the $4 shipping. But the question is, do I want to do that? Or do I want to do what I currently do, which is overall my prices are lower. However, my shipping's more expensive, but I also have a really good program for my return customers for rewards where they're ending up with around 2% off. So I could get rid of all that and do $4 shipping, but to me, that's their thing, you know?
So Hanzo's asking, how did Target discount all their 60th anniversary 2-packs by 50% almost immediately upon arrival? Only discounted in store only. Online listings remain full price. What happened there?
Earl, are you in the chat, Earl? Wherever you are, Target manager Earl, you'll watch this later and then you'll comment. I don't know what the hell they were thinking there. I think that was just a case of they saw that they were going to have a smaller schematic in the fall, so they decided to react. I don't think they think at all.
Well, and the other thing is, based on what I saw, there were some stores, mostly the ones near the shipping ports, that got like all that inventory in, and their shelves were packed with it. But then most of the other stores were lucky if they got a case in. Like I saw maybe 2 of those 2-packs at my local Target. But I certainly would see pictures online of like the shelves filled with them and stuff. And I think that was only a very small. So I think it comes down to distribution of Target, and they don't get it out to all of their stores. And so of course, if only a handful of the stores is getting the majority of the inventory, they're going to be left with those stores are going to be left with a lot of unsold inventory.
Yeah.
And so I think they just decided to discount it out, really quick. But I think that really comes down to bad distribution on the part of, the retailers. And I don't know, that's always been kind of a problem in the world of toys. I don't know why that is. You can get like DVDs and stuff out to every store on a certain day. I've never understood why like they didn't do like toys kind of like DVDs and stuff, where like, new DVDs always came out on Tuesdays, right? You could go into any Target and find that new DVD on that specific day. But for some reason, toys have just never been able to follow that model. And again, I don't know enough about how all that works to say why, but
yeah, it's interesting. I've never really understood why they didn't follow that either. I could also say that for years, all of us, including me, have blamed Hasbro for poor distribution in stores. What I've learned in my couple of years doing this now is 99% of the poor distribution is the stores themselves. It's not Hasbro. Hasbro sends the stuff to their distribution center, and then they're just like, what do we do with this?
And it may have even been Earl that you mentioned was telling me one time, like something like the stores, they don't even know what they're getting half the time. They're just like, and I don't know. It's just like, maybe it just comes down to, again, it's just, they don't care enough to figure it out. I don't know, but it's always been crazy to me.
I don't think a lot of people get collecting, right? Like, I think that a lot of these stores are like, well, this is a kid's toy. It doesn't need to have a street date. What does a date matter for? And they look at it like that. But I think that a good example of the store distribution failure would be back when they did the Age of Apocalypse wave. Hasbro has been trying for years to kind of get rid of assorted cases and go to just solids because it's more profitable for them. And they tried it with the Age of Apocalypse wave. And what we saw was, if you want the Cyclops, you got to go to this city. If you want to get Rogue, got to go over there. And like, you had to do like a 100-mile loop to get the entire wave. Yeah, and
that was what we were talking about. And when he was saying like, they don't even know, like they just send this solid case of figures to this store and this solid case, but like they're not shipping out the entire wave to each of the stores because they don't really know what belongs to each wave. So that's why you would see one Target get just one of the figures in the wave because they just got that solid case, and then another Target got another figure, but like neither store got the entire wave in stock. So especially when it's like a Build-A-Figure and you're like trying to complete the whole wave, so you have the Build-A-Figure, it's like, what the hell is going on here? But so yeah, I think that was kind of in keep when they started trying to do the solid wave stuff. And I think that benefited online e-tailers because that allowed places, oh, I know this is going to be a hot selling figure. I'm going to order 5 cases of this one. Oh, that one's probably not going to sell very well, so I'm only going to order 1 case. So I think that was definitely a nice move to support the smaller online e-tailers. But
Quinn just made a comment that's really true. For the smaller retailers, brick and mortar, the comic book stores and whatnot, not having assortments would really hurt them because they can't sell 8 of a dead character. They're not going to sell 8 of each figure from the Eternals wave. That's going to completely kill them. So I think assortments are good, but G.I. Joe, they've recently been doing, I guess since the spring, they've been doing solid cases only, but cases of 4, which has been interesting. There's nothing quite like, I got my, who did I get today? I was opening Shockwave, and I'm like, this is going to take forever. Like, I only have 40 figures right now, but this is going to take me forever to open 10 cases to get 40 figures out of them. But, what are you going to do? I mean, I think that's good, though. I think it's good for smaller retailers to do those smaller case sizes like that, as long as it doesn't affect bringing the wholesale price up.
Now, going back to McFarlane, what do you think about his love of these variants, the Platinum Edition figures and stuff? Is that, I know it's frustrating from the consumer collector standpoint, especially when, like a Captain Carrot, where the variant's probably the nicer of the 2 figures. But is that something that benefits you as a retailer, or are people like buying more Captain Carrots trying to get that one chase variant, or is that not really?
That's a great question. So I, having just gotten back into McFarlane, haven't figured that out yet. So it seems like I love it, but I don't know for sure. Like, I have a couple of the last wave of Hawkmans and some other ones sitting around, but I didn't put them on the site because they're going to, if I put them on the site for the $30 price tag, they're going to go to somebody who's going to resell them. Like, let's be realistic. That's why Big Bad put them up for $40 or $50. If not, they sell out immediately to someone like that. So it's like, how do you handle this to make it fair? The cool thing is it does help in that, okay, I feel a little bit safer ordering extra Captain Carrots because I know I'm going to have these to sell them. So I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to handle them yet. I might, like, I've been doing a lot of mystery boxes where it's like, okay, get 1 good thing and 2 peg warmers for the price of 3 figures. It might end up being that for me, where I do that, where it's like, you're guaranteed 1 platinum figure and a bunch of other crap you probably don't want. Because I haven't figured out the right way to do it yet. Because a lot of people get angry if you raise the price, and I understand that. And it's just it is definitely a catch-22. It's like, it's great for the retailers. It really is, especially the smaller retailers like comic book stores, because they're going to be able to put that up at a price that's going to pay for about half of the case for them. And it makes it profitable if they have to go and discount the other ones later. Because let's be realistic, most of the time, you're not going to be able to sell everything for MSRP. At some point, things get discounted. So that money has to come from somewhere. So maybe that's where it comes from. I haven't figured out a way to handle it yet that makes sense to me. For now, I just have I had 10 cases of the Target exclusive Supergirl 2 months ago now. And apparently there were platinums in there. I didn't even notice it. Like, I just started noticing that there's platinum figures in my cases. My wife brought them to me the other day. She goes, these look different. What the hell's going on? I'm like, oh, these must be those chases people tell me about. And I'm still trying to figure it out.
Like, I noticed, so McFarlane store was selling cases of this newest wave with the Captain Carrot. So, like, you get 6 figures with 1 that would guarantee you getting 1 of the chase variants. And the Captain Carrot cases actually sold out on the store. I have no idea how many they sold, but they actually sold out on those cases. So I don't know if that
Captain Carrot, for whatever, I'm a much more of a Marvel than a DC guy. I have no freaking idea who Captain Carrot is, but he, compared to Crypto and Batman Green Lantern, he's selling at a 7-to-1 ratio compared to those two. Like, it's insane.
All those like weird rabbit type characters and stuff, they seem to always be, whether it's Marvel, Star Wars, DC,
except for Jackson. Nobody wants Jackson the rabbit. That
thing's
been on closeout forever.
Oh, really? That was one of the ones I picked up.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think it's a cool figure, but it did not sell well because so many people saw it and said, what the hell is this Star Wars rabbit?
Joshua says, sell them like Big Bad Toy Store. I'm down to support small business.
Maybe I'll do that. Like, I've also thought about, like, one of the things I considered before starting the store as a way to bring in more income was Patreon. But honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the, hey, pay me to make content that I would probably give you for free otherwise model. But I thought about doing something where it's like, you get a yearly or a monthly subscription, and maybe you get free shipping once a month or something. And then you also get like first shot at all of these exclusives and platinums and whatnot. Haven't decided how I want to handle that yet. But I mean, that's that. Like, I've looked at doing that because, again, you probably know about this kind of stuff because you're into the internet marketing world. But like, I love the idea of internet courses. Unfortunately, they don't fit into our niche at all, right? Like, no one's going to pay for a course on action figure photography. At least that's what I'm told. I talk to Trevor Williams, 1/6 shooter, all the time, and I'm like, bro, if I had your like a third of your skills, I would be selling that like it was great, like nothing. Like, just make a course. He's like, no, man, I'm telling you, it doesn't make any money. So I'm about to just give him like $500 or $600 to say, spend a day with me. Let's make a course and see what happens.
Yeah. Sadly, I haven't looked into like toy photography, but sadly, when it comes to like talking about why things actually happen or how things actually work and stuff, I do find that people tend not to be like, I find all that kind of stuff fascinating just because, business and stuff, but the business end of all this has always been very fascinating to me. But just your general audience, I find probably does not find that kind of thing nearly as interesting as like I personally do and such. But
that's an interesting thing. Like, the videos that I've done talking about business stuff have been some of my best videos. I don't understand that, but views wise, they've done the best.
Really?
Yeah, makes no sense to me.
So I speaking of your videos, I think I saw one where you talked about how you did want to open a physical store. Now, is that really just like a pipe dream, or is that something a goal that you truly have set to accomplish?
Both. So I don't believe that it is sustainable in most markets to open a physical location in like the standard strip mall. I'm going to pay rent per square foot. I don't think it works. But what I would like to do in a perfect world is buy a big commercial facility that I can use for multiple things, such as a warehouse and a retail store and a studio. Like, I have been looking and I haven't seen anything that I love yet. Actually, there's a place down the street from me that I was looking at, and I don't really believe in renting either. I think that if you're going to do this, you have to find a way to kind of have your business have a mortgage, basically. I think that's the only way to do it long term that makes sense. And I like to buy something, but I'm not going to do it until the time is perfect. Until I feel like we're in a better economic state. And I've been targeting non-traditional buildings. So buildings that are not in like strip malls, that are off the beaten path, because my belief is that if the e-commerce end is enough to pay for the facility and the retail is just kind of like icing on top of the cake and it's not necessary to pay the budget, my belief is, okay, then it doesn't really matter where it is. You don't need to have a good view. You don't need to have good street traffic. You just need to have a good, solid, big location with parking. So one of the types of buildings that I've been looking at is churches. Like, you get a church with a lot of space. To me, that's ideal. You turn part of it into a retail store, part of it into a warehouse, and you take all of the random offices and turn them into studios and offices. But I haven't found the perfect one yet. But if you look at the price of a mortgage with a retail store, with a commercial mortgage compared to like a random strip mall, it's the same. But one of them you're going to own. The other one, they're going to continue to raise the rent.
Right.
So I think that's the only way it works.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, my original dream was to open a physical comic toy store, but I just don't think I would. Because my view is physical retail is dying.
Yeah, it is.
And I that it would ever get to a point where you can generate enough traffic, because I mean it's not just the space, but then you've got to hire employees to work the store, and you've got to have probably a security system so people don't come in and rob you blind. And I mean I don't know, it just seems like your overhead would be so high. I mean that's kind of a cool idea, some type of warehouse. I mean you could even do, if you really want to get creative, if you were able to find a warehouse space of some type that you could like section off, have your store, have your online area with the warehouse, but then maybe a section where you could do monthly toy shows or something, where you could have other vendors come in and set up and do something like that. That could be an interesting. I see more and more, and I don't know how long, if this is like a bubble thing, but I see all these little toy shows popping up more and more, where like they're pretty much just flea markets where everyone comes in, gets a table, and starts selling their stuff. But it definitely seems to be a trend that is growing right now. But I don't know how long that's going to last. But
it's funny you say that on multiple levels. So on the physical space level, you're 100% dead on everything with that. I think that's the way to go. I've even looked at like, okay, what is like the future retail store look like? Like if you didn't want to have merchandise out, like I thought about like, what if you just did everything in dioramas in glass cases, and then you had nothing but a ton of TV screens showing all the in-stock product on like rotating slideshows, so that really your retail store was used as a pickup location for your warehouse, but also people could come in, browse the menu, and pick what's there without you having to deal with an employee, all the insurance risks, the security risks. Like there's ways to do it that are outside of the box. And it's funny what you say about toy shows, because actually that's like me and my wife were talking like, okay, one of our hedges as far as like creating revenue streams is we're like, maybe that's the route we need to go. My background, if you can't tell, is in business management stuff, but I didn't finish college. I am just a straight up street guy as far as knowing how to handle people and how to do things the right way. I thought maybe I would do that because I think that I could probably throw a show that's a little bit different than any other show that really kind of focuses on the community building aspect rather than just, hey, it's a flea market with a bunch of vendors with overpriced stuff. And that's something I want to look at if I can find the right place to do it. It's the same thing. Like I've been spending a lot of time studying, this is going to sound so nerdy, but population density maps to figure out the best geographic location in the Northeast to do it. That makes sense. Where you really, the trick is you got to find a cheap enough building that you can charge a cheap enough table price so that your vendors don't mark their crap up to cover their table price cost. And then if you get into the game of getting guests and celebrities, that's where the danger usually happens for a lot of these, because people are like, oh, wow, it's $50 a ticket. Oh, and it's $100 to go get my ticket from the third background character in Firefly. And, there's some places that do it really well. I've seen some really good conventions. Joe Vetteri out in New Jersey. He runs NJ Toy Con. He's the guy who sets up Legion's Con. He does a fantastic job. Like that's kind of like my mentor guy. I'm like, hey Joe, show me how to show a show. But like his big theory is like, you don't pay for those autograph guests. Instead, keep your overhead low so that you don't have to charge your vendors so that they can pass off the cost to the consumers. I think shows are great, actually. I just think that a lot of people who throw shows just literally throw crap onto the internet and think that it's going to work. And sadly, a lot of the time it does. And people go to these shows and they're disappointed and they never want to go to another show again. I was at one last week in the middle of nowhere. Like when I say the middle of nowhere, like we're in Amish country, Pennsylvania. I drove an hour north to this thing. It was in a barn. It was a wedding venue. They had 15 different vendors, $10 a head. And I'm like, this guy's making a killing. He owned the venue. So it's his own venue. So he's not paying rent. He charged $100 a table. He had something like 25 vendors. He had 150 guests. I'm like, this is amazing. This is genius. and terrible at the same time.
Well, like it was like 2 weeks ago now. I went to the Maryland Toy Expo, and I don't like, to cover toy news. I've been to San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic. I've been to the big conventions for many, many years, and I've gone to some like JoeCon. I used to go to JoeCon and BotCon, things like that, which were smaller conventions and stuff. But I still never really went to just like a toy show type. Because I'm not a huge vintage toy collector. I don't usually go buy old toys and stuff. So it's never been something to interest me, but I decided to go to the Maryland Toy Expo because, it was an hour away, and it was like, why not? And so this was at the Maryland Fairgrounds, and they had it in 2 different buildings. And I went middle day. My feeling is like the people that go to find toys, they're there first thing in the morning to get all the good deals and everything. But I was there midday, and I was surprised at how crowded it was. I mean, this was a fairgrounds, and they filled up the parking lot with people coming to the show. Now, the big headliner guest was 2 people from American Gladiator, which I'm like, okay, I don't really get the connection. And like, nobody was like in line to see the guy. I felt bad for them because like they were just sitting at their table, and like everyone was just walking by, and nobody was going to see them and stuff. But I was surprised at how many people were there. Now I couldn't tell, I was only there for a few hours, so it didn't look like I saw a lot of tables where people had things on discount, and I still didn't see like people buying a lot. Like people were walking around looking at stuff, but I didn't necessarily see tons of people buying stuff. So it's hard to gauge of how much successful it was for like the vendors and stuff. But it definitely was kind of interesting. Just to see how popular that seems to, like, how many people come out to shows like that. And then like, I don't know if you've been to PowerCon.
I was there this year on a scooter.
So I was going to go, and then I had some things with my dad I had to take care of. So I wasn't able to go this year, but I've talked to Val Staples, who runs, PowerCon, and I would love to see not like a San Diego Comic-Con that's more entertainment centric, but I'd love to see a toy convention with all the toy companies that come to show off new product and stuff, toy centric celebrities, if we want to call them that, but you know what I mean, that actually, was successful. And I felt like Val was maybe kind of heading in. I mean, he had, McFarlane, even though I don't even know what McFarlane did there, but he was kind of moving in that direction of getting like the toy companies there, NECA and some of the other guys. And so unfortunately it doesn't seem like PowerCon's going to happen in 2023, so it's going to take a year off, and I don't know, but I definitely feel like
that's disappointing to hear.
Yeah, apparently something happened with the dates or something, and so he decided to take the year off. But it would be cool. And I've heard of the New Jersey Toy Con that you mentioned before. And we just had the Mythic Con, and that seemed to be pretty. I've never been to Mythic Con, but that seemed to bring in quite a few people and stuff. I mean, it's amazing to me how a lot of these independent guys have kind of really, and I mean, Four Horsemen is probably the leader in that area, but how they've kind of like captured their audiences, because I feel like their audience, the people going to those shows and stuff, they're not just buying action figures. They're trying to be part of something like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe, but it's not, they're not just buying an action figure for buying an action figure. They feel like they're part of, they're creating this community and stuff. And so it's kind of interesting to see how that plays out. But the other thing I see is everybody and their uncle now, which is not unusual, is now coming out and like they're trying to start their own action figure lines and stuff. So I do wonder if we're going to end up seeing an oversaturation of these independent guys.
Oh yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out.
It's funny you say that. So that's like one of my many dreams. Is like, I love to make a toy line, but let me just tell you right now, that is a bubble. All of these independent guys coming out, trying to be the next Four Horsemen, And honestly, most of them have great products, but there's only so much to go around. Four Horsemen struck gold. They really did with their Mythic Legions line. Like their group of people really loves it. I know because I've become one of them. And like their product is absolutely nuts. I love it. But aside from them and Bobby over doing the Valaverse Action Force, most of them, the market share is pretty low. Uh, like when I get any new Action Force in or I get more Four Horsemen, it sells like hotcakes. But if it's not them and it's not NECA, Hasbro, Mattel, it doesn't sell as well. And I see so many of these lines popping up, and I do think we're in a bubble. I really do. And I think that bubble's going to burst. There's just, it feels like every week there's a new toy line that pops up. And I think everybody wants to be the next Four Horsemen. The problem is the Four Horsemen did everything that on their, like they've been in the industry for so long. They knew the entire business. They had the factories. They had the sculpting. They had an idea that they captured. I think Bobby did a really good job with it as well with Valaverse. And Joey's mentioning Ramen Toys. I think Ramen Toys, I met Ace over at PowerCon. I think Ace does a phenomenal job. The problem is there's only so much money in this market. And when you're talking about unlicensed toys, it's a risk. And I'll kind of give you the good example of 3-0. 3-0 has been around since 2002. I had not heard of 3-0 until like 2016 or 17, whenever they got the Transformers license. In fact, I don't think anybody had. And I just actually got like a direct account with them and a good relationship with that company. And talking to them, they were like, yeah, licensed toys, best thing we ever did. Like that was the way to go. And I think that there's only so much you can do with unlicensed toys unless you're really doing a great job world building. I think Bobby's doing a good job building the Valaverse universe, but a lot of these other toy companies, we're looking at like a 3-paragraph biography. And that's what we know about the characters. Like if I was going to launch a toy company today, I think the way to go is you have to, before you even announce that it's going to be a toy, you have to build a connection to the characters and the story by going in and either doing a comic book or a web comic or something like that. But without that, it's just like, hey, here's a cool looking guy. He's going to kill people.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about the Four Horsemen is, and you know, not only, I mean, they're very talented, yes, and like you say, they knew the industry because they worked for many other toy companies before they even started doing their own thing. But the other thing is, they were the first. They were on that ground floor. It's like I've said this about my own, you know, websites. Like if I tried to launch Toy News International today, it probably would not be anywhere near the success it is because I was lucky and I just happened to be kind of there on the ground floor and have been doing it for so long now that's what gives me kind of an edge. But if I tried to launch the same site today, it probably would never take off. And you know, you hear people say this, but a lot of people who are successful, a large part of that success is just dumb luck that you just, you know, kind of,
I say it all the time.
So, I mean, I think the Four Horsemen are definitely, again, while they make very solid products and everything, also just got lucky that they were on the ground floor. But now that, you know, like I say, what always happens is everyone starts to see, oh, that guy's like super successful. I can do it too. So let me start my own action figure line, or, you know, let me start my own website or whatever. And then you start getting all this competition and then you see how things play out. But definitely, you know, I think a lot of these guys are going to be come and go. Even like Bobby Vala, which, you know, I agree. I think Action Force has become pretty popular, but that I don't necessarily 100% count as a completely independent line because
That's
Action
true.
Force within the world of G.I. Joe was a well-known name. Now, obviously, Bobby's line is really kind of Action Force in name only, but you know, he did have some name recognition there to kind of help give him a little bit of a boost. But you know, now as he's trying to branch, you know, we'll see how he does as he's trying to branch out into other things, like he's launching the White Dragon stuff, and
yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, so, but definitely, I just, you know, like you said, it's almost like we're watching a bubble, and it'll be interesting to see. I will tell you that I have never had any interest in wanting to make action figures. I've loved covering them over the years. And maybe it's just because I've heard so many horror stories about what it's like dealing with the factories and all of that, but I have absolutely no desire to try and launch an action figure line of my own.
I think it's easier now, especially with some of the people who are over there and also prominent in the industry. And specifically, I'm talking about Ace from Ramen. He spends 8 months of the year in China. So I'll tell you, if I was going to launch something, my first phone call would be to him and be like, hey, buddy, what do I use for a factory? Can you manage it? I don't want to go over there. So, and then let him manage it from there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. I'm really curious to see. I think that Savage Crucible and Meta Travelers are kind of going to be a bit of the test subjects for whether the bubble has burst yet. I want to see how popular they are once they come out. And it's ironic because I made the strategic decision not to carry either line until I see what happens with them more. So I'm very curious to see what happens because basically, all of these toy companies, they come out and they all are like, hey, you want to buy my product? And I want to support everybody, but it's also really hard to sink money into a toy line as a business that's not going to be out for a year and a half.
Right.
Like I can do that with Four Horsemen because I know their stuff's going to sell like hotcakes when it does come out.
Well, so going back to the Maryland Toy Expo, those Savage Crucible guys were actually there. Bobby was there too with Action Force. So that show actually had a few, small toy guys there. Yeah. And so that was the first time I actually got to see their figures in person because I have not been to a show myself for a couple of years now. But so that was my first time actually seeing their product. And yeah, I got to tell you, they look like, if the prototypes, if the articulation and everything seemed to be really nice and stuff. So, I mean, they could definitely prove to be a fierce competitor for somebody like Four Horsemen because the styles are very similar. The dwarves and the barbarians and all that kind of stuff. So, and Monster Force, Big Bad Toy Stores own, that I think is got some real potential. And of course backed by Big Bad Toy Store. Yeah. So, that's going to give that action figure line a kind of a foot up. But
it's going to be interesting to see. It really is.
Yep. Well, is there anything? I think we covered all the topics I had. Is there anything you want to plug, or you got any big holiday sales coming up? Or
at Black Friday I'll have something. I haven't figured out what yet, but I'm still working on it. I got some. I scored some stuff as far as discounted product that I'll be able to do some good deals on. There'll be 20% off a bunch of various Four Horsemen products across every official retailer. So it's not just me, starting on Black Friday. Hopefully that was public news. As far as the 2023 Nerdy Awards, as of right now, keep an eye out. I'm planning to do a category nomination show sometime early next week because I don't feel like having a ballot that has 100 entries for each question. Like, hey, what's the best Marvel Legend? Here's every single one that was released in 2023. That gets a little cumbersome. So you can keep an eye out for that and keep an eye out for the Nerd Stash, which will be the Nerdzoic pile of loot. Should be coming hopefully early 2024.
Gotcha. That actually, one last question. So how is it balancing the YouTube thing and the toy store thing? Like, just time wise, like how much time do you put into making YouTube videos on average? Like you seem to do what, one a week these days?
Try. It's been one another lately. It's been rough. So what I find, I come from being a blue collar manual labor type of guy. So I can only spend maybe 8 hours a day in front of a computer. Whereas when I was on my feet working in kitchens, I could do 14, 16-hour days like it was nothing. I didn't expect like sitting on your butt to be this hard, but it's pretty hard. Your brain just stops working. So yeah, it's really hard for me. I have a couple people I work with. Kyle, who lives near me, he's become my producer. He helps me kind of get the videos ready. I have an editor I work with as well, but it's been hard to balance that because you have to be, I'm sure you know this, I have to be in the right mindset to record. If I'm in a bad mood because I just got a customer complaint or I just saw Hasbro Pulse launch something that nobody else has, I can't record a video. I'm in a bad mood. It ain't happening. So it's really hard to balance. It's one of my goals for 2024 because I really want to do more content. Because honestly, that's what I have the most fun doing is making content. But it seems like we've been at the point lately where we have been trying to bring in employees, and it's mostly been friends and family because it's in our house. We don't want to have a stranger. So we've had a lot of that, and that's been really helpful. I have a lady who I used to work with back in my Panera days, who I just brought on to, which this sounds like it's nothing, but it's actually incredibly time consuming, manage putting listings up on the website during the day for me. So she's kind of almost done training at this point. So I'll be able to dedicate more time to content because that's where I have fun. And honestly, I'm so in the weeds on this computer crap that I have no creative juice left right now.
Yeah. I'm the same way because I mean, just like, all right, am I gonna be able to bring a guest on my live stream and not have it screw up? And it's like you spend more time working on the logistics of it. I mean, as you do it more and more, I'm sure it gets easier. But yeah, there's a lot. It's not like you just automatically know how to do all this stuff. You kind of have to learn it as you go. And that's another good point you make because it's like, you could probably sit there and tell me everything that's coming out for the first half of Marvel Legends in 2024, but that would obviously get you in serious trouble. So like things that, and like you're having to balance. Okay, what can I actually say and not get in trouble? Like if I see online a listing of everything that's coming out for Marvel Legends in the next year, I can post it because first of all, it's out there and it's my job to report on it, but it's not like I was given that information in confidentiality and breaking that confidentiality by putting it out there. But you're very limited of things you can say because you know things from the business side that you're not really allowed to publicly say on YouTube. So that's definitely got to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I feel like Hagrid in the first Harry Potter movie. Like everything I get done saying, I'm like, oh, I should not have said that. Like it comes a lot, but some of them's really easy. Like Four Horsemen will just straight up be like, yo, this is confidential. Don't say anything. And I'll be like, hey, thank you for telling me. Now I know. And I don't say anything. Hasbro will just be like, here's some information. Do with it what you will. And then if you accidentally say something you're not supposed to, why did you say that? And I'm like, why can't you guys communicate in any sort of way?
Yeah. Hasbro is generally the right hand never knows what the left hand's doing on Hasbro. So,
oh my God, it's like I kind of got a lot of trouble earlier this year because I leaked the Black Series rerun news. And like, it was such a crap show because my distributor calls me, he goes, hey, I got this rerun list. Let me know what you need. He sends me the list and I look at it and I'm like, holy crap, this is huge news. How come nobody's talking about it? He goes, yeah, I don't know why nobody's talking about it. And I literally ask, well, am I allowed to break this news then? And he goes, well, it's a rerun. And there doesn't seem to be any embargo. They've been doing all sorts of reruns lately. We got the Venom, Pull Wave, Venom, and Carnage, and they just show up. So I don't think it's an issue if you say anything. So I go and I announce it, like, whole big deal. And then Monday, Hasbro sends out the email to all the vendors. Somehow this information leaked. We're putting it on hold. And I'm just like, shit. Everybody's going to be mad at me now and say I made it up. And sure enough, there's all sorts of, you made it up for clicks. And I'm like, what good could possibly come to me for making up fake news? There's literally nothing good that can come out of it to me. Except for maybe one video that I make $40 on.
Yeah. So Quinn, he wants to know if you think Valiverse will be able to compete or even surpass G.I. Joe.
That's a tough one. So if G.I. Joe has the magic button that is nostalgia, So like they could put up a completely obscure character to somebody who's never seen G.I. Joe, but to the next guy, that's the toy that I used to take in the bathtub with me. I love Alpine. But like if you put up the Action Force version, why is this guy yellow? Why is this guy white? So it's kind of up in the air. I don't think they'll be able to overtake Classified. And honestly, Classified in the last 2 years, it surpassed Black Series. I think at this point, on a figure by figure basis, I'd have to double check to confirm, but I think they sell more for me than Black Series and Legends. Like Classified has become their number one seller across multiple stores when I talk to owners. So
Yeah.
it's going to be hard to surpass that.
The only advantage I would say is eventually Hasbro will run through their core characters and it'll be, which is where I think Star Wars is today, is like we just keep getting the same characters over and over, and Marvel's kind of headed down that path as well. So I don't care if it's a little bit better than the last 5 that you released, it's still the same character, and it just gets to the point where it's like I'm not going to buy him anymore. Yeah. So I could see G.I. Joe getting to that point, whereas Valaverse might have more freedom to do more unique characters since people aren't buying them because they're like household name characters or something, or the nostalgia. So they've got maybe more freedom to go longer than G.I. Joe might. But I think you're like, I'm that person that I think Valaverse figures look good, but I don't collect generic military figures. That's not why I collect G.I. Joe. I collect G.I. Joe purely for the nostalgia. And so, I'm not even that in, like when Hasbro revealed those deluxe kind of generic figures that I guess are kind of meant to compete with Action Force. I was like, yeah, those don't really interest me at all. They looked okay. I mean, they look good, but it's just not what I have. Limited shelf space, and I have a hard enough time finding space for the core key characters and stuff, and so it's like I don't need that generic guy taking up shelf space on my thing. And I don't do it's different if you're doing dioramas or toy photography and stuff, but I would say G.I. Joe is probably always going to be a bigger seller in general until G.I. Joe just kind of runs its course.
I think that what we'll end up seeing, it will be interesting to see. So they have 2 options. With G.I. Joe, unlike Marvel and Star Wars, they can just make up their own damn characters if they want to. Like, this is big Western Red guy. He's a cowboy / military guy. But they can't do that with Star Wars and Marvel. But what I would do if I ran Hasbro's toys and my job was like thinking of new ways to make money, I would run this 6-inch line for Black Series, Marvel, and Star Wars as far as you can take it. I think that we're going to, thanks to companies like Hot Toys and 3-0, we're seeing the 12-inch figures continue to get more praise. Now, sure, Marvel Legends tried that a few years ago, and it went pretty poorly, but it was a fully plastic mold. Hasbro could make a Hot Toys-esque figure for like way less than Hot Toys. So if I was the one running Hasbro, I'd be like, hey, look, here's our new Hot Toys-ish version of The Mandalorian. This one's $125. Or you can go get theirs for $250. Hasbro, if you're watching, don't use my idea. That's my idea only. People will be mad at me.
I think, the thing that kept Hasbro from doing a Hot Toys type figure was price. And a retailer like Target, Walmart would never carry something like that because it was going to be too expensive. But as Hasbro moves to the model of selling smaller numbers to the adult collector, I mean, I would suppose that's possible.
Alternatively, they kind of tried that, like the bigger scale with those Black Series hyper reels, and that was a disaster for them.
Yeah. Well, but that had like the rubber material and stuff, and like I always am wary about figures that have that kind of rubber material and stuff, because every figure I've had like that long term never lasts. Like that material disintegrates. I don't know if you've ever seen like old Toy Biz Morbius figures, where like the face was rubber, and like more than not the face is like just melted over time for no real reason. And I just store collectible figures were kind of the same way. I was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe they'll last, but they're so expensive and stuff. I don't know. So I always grow wary of figures with the rubber type material and stuff. But I because 12-inch figures to me are not. I've never been really into 12-inch.
Me either.
So I don't pay that close attention to it. I know Hot Toys has its niche, but it does seem to be a fairly small niche, and I think a lot of that is just the price. But I don't know. I don't know if Hasbro tried to do an actual. I don't think. I don't know why, but I don't think Hasbro could ever truly do as nice a 12-inch figure as Hot Toys, and so people would always look at it and say, "Oh, that's I'm just going to go get a Hot Toys figure because it's better quality and stuff."
I think just because it's Hasbro on it, people are going to say that.
Yeah, and I think I like those 12-inch Marvel Legends that they did. I thought those were pretty cool figures, but you're right, people just didn't really.
They didn't go for it, but like another companies that's done really well with it is Mondo. Mondo can't keep their master stuff in stock anywhere.
Yeah. So is that because they truly sell that well, or is it just because they're producing such small numbers?
Yeah, it's both
that they sell. So I don't know.
It's both. Like I've been trying. Like I got my Mondo wholesale account, and I've been like, "Hey, cool. This X-Men stuff and that Batman animated series stuff is cool, but where's the good stuff? Show me the Motu." And like they don't have any of it. They got none. They got all the other stuff, but none of the Motu.
I have I got the He-Man and I got She-Ra and I got Battle Cat. Though I have not opened my Battle Cat because
Really?
I don't really have any space for it. So I'm like, I was on I almost canceled the Battle Cat, and then I got distracted and I didn't, so it ended up just arriving. And so I'm like, I've got it. If I don't open it, I might resell it one day and probably be able to make some money. So unless I have a good space for it, I don't want to open it up and then just have it sit somewhere where I'm not going to enjoy it. So like right now, I'm on the fence. I have my He-Man and She-Ra on display, but again,
that makes sense.
I just space wise. Like, I wish, sometimes I wish I could like just fill my whole house with toys, but my wife would kill me. So,
Amen.
I got to keep it to this room, and I have one other room in the house that's filled with stuff, but it's getting pretty crowded in here. So,
yeah, I think that all of us would have a house of toys if we weren't married. Like that's kind of like the good and the bad of wives. They keep us balanced, but they also make us put some of our toys away. You should see now. Like, I mean, you got the same thing. Toys are your business, so you could be like, "Oh no, I didn't spend personal money on this. This is business expense. This Galactus here, business expense."
Yeah, that is true.
I almost bought that Battle Cat, man. Just so you know, like at PowerCon, I had a messed up ankle. I had a couple torn ligaments, so I was in a hover round. I was like hovering around the Mondo booth repeatedly, staring at Battle Cat and Beastman, but I never pulled the trigger because I couldn't find a good He-Man price, or I would have.
Yeah, I'd gotten He-Man when it came. I thought it was cool, and again, I don't really collect 12-inch, but I was like, all right, I'll get it. And then I got She-Ra. And then I was like, well, damn, I got He-Man. I better get Battle Cat. And then I was like, but now I got no space for it. And I got so many, like the NECA turtle van is supposed to arrive tomorrow. I don't know where that's going to go. The Hiss tank is supposed to start shipping out here and very soon. I don't know where that's going to go. It's just getting to the point where all these huge items. I mean, for me, it's less about money and it's totally about space.
Yeah,
so.
I think everyone's going to have that issue. And did you get your shipping notice on that NECA thing like a week ago or so?
I got a shipping notice saying you're going to get a FedEx thing, and then nothing. And then just today, I got a FedEx thing saying you've got a package from NECA arriving tomorrow. And I assume it's the turtle van because I got nothing else from NECA on order. So, but I didn't get any actual thing saying, okay, your turtle van is shipped out. and we'll be here on such and such day. I just got the one email from NECA saying it's going to ship out soon. You'll get a tracking number from FedEx.
I'm looking
And
at
then,
that. I'm waiting. I want my turtle van, man.
And then just today, literally from FedEx, I got an email saying you've got a package that's going to arrive tomorrow from NECA. So
Oh, I can't wait for that. Like, that's going to be one of those things that it's like, okay, I shall sell something else to make a home for this van.
yeah. Well, and I really was tempted to get the Super 7 Turtle, or not Turtle, but Super 7 Thundercat layer, because I got the Thundercat tank and I've got all the Thundercats, but I was just like, I'm not going to have space for it. So I passed on that one too. So
you could be like me and just keep everything in the box until the day comes that you have the space for it. Galactus is sitting in my storage unit unopened, waiting for me.
Well, I used to have a big storage unit filled with toys, and it was like I was spending all this money on storage. I've sold a lot of my older stuff just to reduce the storage, because I was like, I'm spending all this money. I'm not enjoying these toys. They just sit in the storage facility, so I might as well sell them so that someone else can enjoy them and spend less money. But
it makes sense. It's tough.
The boxes take up space too. So
yeah, it's crazy. Like, I did not grow up on Thundercats. I have no emotional connection to it. But when I saw that Cats lair, I was like, holy moly, I need that.
Yeah. I didn't collect Thundercat toys as a kid. I watched the cartoon every day, but I didn't collect the original toys. But I think it was Bandai was the first one that started giving us 6-inch Thundercats, and then they didn't finish. And then Mattel started giving us Thundercats, and they didn't finish. And I was like, I want somebody to give us the entire team of Thundercats. And finally, once I get my overpriced $55 Snarf figure from Super 7, then I'll have my complete team. But
Super 7, there's a company that I could go on about. That's one of those ones I don't know that they're going to last much longer.
You think? I don't know. They seem to be Hasbro's go-to people for
now.
Yeah.
I mean, that Hasbro money can only last for so long. Like, you saw the Big Bad Toy Store sale. That was insanity. They're trying to sell that stuff to get rid of it. Like, I started putting up Super 7 stuff and then ordering only what I pre-ordered. I can't sell them because everybody knows it's going to go to clearance. Nobody will pay full price anymore.
But like, I've seen several reports, so I've seen more than one, that like G.I. Joe Ultimates have started to show up at Walmart stores. I haven't seen them myself.
I heard that.
So I'm like, and that surprised me, just not only because Super 7 getting a figure like that in Walmart, that Walmart would carry like a $60 action figure, but also that Hasbro would allow the G.I. Joe Ultimates, which are would be competing directly with G.I. Joe Classified. But I mean, if Super 7's starting to get, and Amazon has been carrying their stuff, so I don't know. It's hard to say, but
it's weird. It's weird. Like, talking to them at Toy Fair, they don't seem to be concerned about it at all.
Well, and I even asked Big Bad Toy Store. I was like, because I started seeing these videos pop up when they ran that sale. Super 7's about to go out of business, or Big Bad Toy Store is not going to carry Super 7 product anymore, or things like that. So I reached out to them. It's like, are you guys going to keep carrying Super 7 figures? And their response was, and maybe they were just telling me something because they didn't want to say they weren't, but they said, oh no, we're very happy with Super 7 products, and we continue to plan on keep carrying them into the future. So they were like, we're just clearancing out old inventory, but it's not like a big deal.
Yeah, well, they do have a space problem with Pile of Loot and with all of that. Like, talking to Joel, like, space is at a premium, and warehouse space in this country right now is a hot commodity. But I do see them carrying it, but I see them being like me, which is, we're only going to order like X% above our pre-orders. We're not going to go crazy with this stuff because people aren't doing it.
And I saw some live stream with Brian Flynn where he was complaining. He didn't mention specific retailers, but I'm assuming it was probably either Big Bad Toy Store or Entertainment Earth, that like he was kind of complaining that like they had cut a bunch of their orders, and so that's like why they were canceling certain figures and stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Like, I have my own theory on them. The fact, like, Brian's been on a lot of shows and he's talked about how like it costs them $35 to make a figure. Yeah, I don't know about that. Unless their like MOQ is like 500, that doesn't line up with what I've heard from companies like NECA and Four Horsemen. And it doesn't line up for what I've heard royalties are, which is between 10 and 20%. The math just doesn't add up. So my only conspiracy theory on this is that it really cost them a lot less to make a figure. So selling them on discount is still profitable for them. That's my only thing I could think of here. I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible. I do not buy a lot of Super 7, so the Thundercats pretty much it.
I love their He-Man stuff. Like, I would buy all of it if it wasn't like $200 a figure on the aftermarket at this point.
Yeah. Well, I never bought any of their He-Man because I really didn't collect classics that heavily because I got so fed up with the whole Matty collector stuff. I was like, yeah, I'm not jumping through these. I'm not going to subscribe to a year's worth of figures without knowing what they even are. And I'm not going to sit there and try and like be there the first 5 seconds that it goes, so I was like, I'm not jumping through these hoops to buy Mattel's figures. So I got a few classics, but I really didn't get heavy into classics. I would have if they were much more easily available, but because they weren't, I didn't, when Super 7 picked up the line and started doing stuff, I was like, yeah, this line is passed me by, so I'm not going to jump in now. And I have been collecting the Masterverse, which I felt has been pretty good, but
yeah, it really has. And honestly, they've overproduced it quite a bit, so you've been able to get a lot of it at discount. And I've been really happy with a lot of Origins, especially now that they're visiting like Filmation designs. Yeah, I'm gonna have all of that, please. Thank you.
And I would imagine the Turtle Masters mashup stuff's going to be pretty popular too.
I'm curious to see, because honestly, for the most part, mashups don't sell well. In fact, I'm surprised they try them as often as they do. Like, there's certain brands that Stranger Things, they'll mash up with anything. If Denny's calls them to do a mashup, they'll make a Grand Slam mashup. They don't care.
Yeah. Well, the Stranger Things He-Man mashup, that was an odd one, but I think Turtles and He-Man is a good mix, and I think those will be pretty popular.
Wrestling and He-Man, those sold pretty well too.
Yeah. Unfortunately, those, at least starting out, were Walmart exclusive, so it made them very hard to get. But yeah, those were pretty. And I'm not big into wrestling anymore. I used to watch as a kid and even as a young adult. But
me too.
But I don't watch wrestling at all anymore. So, and I've never really collected figures of wrestling, but I definitely kind of got into those WWE Masters of the Universe figures.
I'll tell you, I didn't just watch wrestling until 2007. I lived it. Like, that was my life. I watched it. I read every insider newsletter available. And I'll tell you, it's ironic because I don't carry the Mattel wrestling figures, but they're still one of my personal favorite things to collect. It's like, oh, Razor Ramon in yellow? Yes. Razor Ramon in green? Blue? Sure. Why the hell not? Like, I'll take them all. It's crazy.
Yeah, I used to really love wrestling, and I would watch it all the time, but it was about the time of the whole Chris Benoit thing.
Oh, yeah, that's depressing.
You start, it's hard to support a company that, kind of, forces their people to take steroids and shit like that. And then, even today, I can't believe Logan Paul, who's, ripping people off with crypto scams, is being built up on it's really. And I mean, I get that he's super popular on social media and stuff, but it's oh my god, this guy's like a freaking thief, and he's being built up as a celebrity, and it's it just gets hard to support that kind of thing when the company just doesn't seem to care.
Interesting. So that doesn't bother me. Now, granted, I don't know much about Logan Paul, but what really turned me off was when they took all that Saudi Arabia money to go over there, and then all
Yeah.
these guys who were retired and talked about how like retirement needs to be retirement matches, like Shawn Michaels specifically, needs to be treated as like a sacred thing. Oh, how much money? Sure, I'll wrestle in Saudi Arabia. I don't care what they do to women over there. Like that really turned me off to the point where it really was like, oh man, can I watch this? But at the same time, like I'm such a hardcore old school wrestling fan that, oh, WrestleMania's in Philadelphia next year? Sure, I'll pay $1,000 a ticket, no problem.
Yeah.
I don't know who's
Yeah.
going
I
to
mean,
fight. I don't care.
yeah. I mean, it's tough because it's like Vince McMahon, I have little doubt is like a complete scumbag and always has been.
Oh
But
yeah, there's no doubt.
at the same time, he has entertained people for many, many years, but it just, like I said,
Yeah.
the Benoit thing to me was kind of the final straw, and I just never went back after that. And like now it's like I've got no attachment to the new wrestlers and stuff, so it's like I'm not even gonna bother anymore. But
Yeah.
definitely like in the 90s and stuff, I was like every pay-per-view I would get, every SmackDown and Raw, and I'd be watching every week and stuff. But
I remember putting in a job application once at A&W Root Beer. I was 16 years old, and they're like, "Why can't you work Mondays and Thursdays?" I'm like, "Oh, those are wrestling nights. I can't work those nights past 7:30."
Did they hire you?
They did hire me, but then they just put me on the schedule. But I'm like, "Oh, I don't know what's going on. This sucks." And I had to like tape Nitro and Raw at the same time, and that was messing with my head. It was crazy. And I watched, I had my best friend, his dad got every pay-per-view. So I went to watch every single pay-per-view. Last time WrestleMania was in Philly was 99. Him and I spent the entire day before WrestleMania 15. We met The Rock at Modell Sporting Goods. He was literally just like a nobody then. It was pretty fun. And then we met the Big Show at Pep Boys on Cotman Avenue in Philadelphia. Like, now that it's back in Philadelphia, there's no way I'm not going. Like, I have to go. Eddie Rodriguez in here saying ECW was his favorite. I grew up on ECW too. It would come on like Comcast Sportsnet in the middle of the night, and I would sit there and watch it and be like, wow, those 200 people in the arena are really excited. And, the wrestlers would all go to the Chamonix Mall for autograph signings. And of course, I had to go to every single one, but I was such like a dork that at 17 years old, I'm like watching to see what stores Bam Bam Bigelow goes into after his autograph signing. Because I'm like, oh, where's Bam Bam going? Oh, wow, Bam Bam and his son are going on the Sun Coast. I guess I got to go in the Sun Coast.
Well, so here's a cool story. So this was like early 2000s, and one of the WWE pay-per-views was happening in Washington, D.C. I forget which one it was, but so they were holding a press event, and I got on the press list to be able to go cover this thing where like the wrestlers would come out and stuff. And I remember the funniest thing was, and I've always liked Kurt Angle. He's one of my favorite wrestlers. So he comes running out and he literally trips over something and like falls into like the area where like they're doing the photography and like knocks over the backdrop and everything. It was like, it was just funny, but it was cool to see all those guys in person and get to talk to them and stuff. But like, that was one of the few perks of like, getting on that press list and being able to like interact with people like that and stuff. I didn't get to go to the pay-per-view, but I got to go to the like the pre-press thing that they had there in DC. So
I have a toy store near me that manages to get a lot of these guys for autograph signings. And I'm like, Jason, whenever Mick Foley comes back, I need to know. I promise I won't drool too much. Okay. I just need to hang out with him for a little bit. Okay. That's all I'm asking here. Like, I just get so into those older guys. I can't help myself. I love them. I really do.
I had a vintage toy store like you're talking about recently had Sergeant Slaughter out for an autographing, and I wanted to go, but I was taking some care of things in Florida with my dad, and so I couldn't go. But I was like, damn, I would have gone out to see Sergeant Slaughter, and more for GI Joe than wrestling, but
either one. Listen, Sergeant Slaughter was the bad guy that introduced me to wrestling. 1991 WrestleMania 7. I'm like, Hulk Hogan has to beat that Saudi Arabia sympathizer. He's going to take him out. Like, I was so invested into that angle. And then when Earthquake killed Jake Snake, I was heartbroken. Like, I was at like a practice for my first Holy Communion in Catholic Church. And I'm like, what do you mean I have to miss Damien dying? I was so upset. Actually, David Displays Model Behavior, who has a channel, great channel, by the way, anybody who's listening, he was actually in the independent wrestling scene for a while. He was trained by Jake, it went about the way you would expect if you listen to his talks with me. It's pretty funny.
That's cool. Well, and like, was it Pixel Dan doing wrestling with Cody Rhodes?
Pixel Dan, him and I, like, we literally like come back to back at every single convention, but we've never actually talking to each other. Like, it's never like same with Fwoosh. Every time I see Robo, he's talking to somebody, so I'm like, I can't interrupt him. That'd be rude. But I never get to actually have a conversation with him. Where like I got to have a couple long conversations with Russ over at Chartimus, and that was cool with The Amazing. But like some of these guys, like every time I see them, I have to send them like a private message afterwards and be like, hey, I wasn't being rude, but you were talking to somebody, so I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah. Every time I talk about Pixel Dan, it's like I feel old because he literally was as a kid, he was a moderator on my message boards. And now
really?
he's like, yeah. So it's like every time it's like, damn, I'm freaking and I've been doing this a long time. So, yeah.
Are you feeling it yet? Like, I wake up in the morning and I'm just like, oh shit, I feel like I'm going to sleep. Why am I so sore already?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I used to do marathons and like triathlons and stuff.
Oh, nice.
But like it's been probably 5-6 years since I did anything like that. But like my joints definitely feel it these days.
Yeah, every morning I wake up and I'm just like, oh, that's probably the worst part of this whole working for yourself thing is my exercise now non-existent. My wife is always yelling at me about it.
Well, actually, for me, it's the opposite because I sit at the computer all day, and ever since I've been doing this, so I got to a point where it's like I got to get out and find some exercise. So that's when I started running. Like I used to run in high school and even a little bit in college, but I really got into running just to go out and get exercise. So I go out and run a few miles here, a few miles there, and then I started to get into the long distance stuff for a little while there. But even now, I like to run just because if you sit at the computer all day, I mean, I'm not in good shape. I definitely have too many pounds, but if I didn't do some exercise, I would be like this huge, wouldn't fit in my chair probably.
Keep an eye out for the Nerdzoic Gets Skinny YouTube channel. I'll tell you, like, it's funny because like I'm probably at like 340 right now. I'm 6'4" for a little bit of comparison there. But at my max, I was at 450 in 2018. I had weight loss surgery. I got down to about 265, but then COVID hit. And like the first week of COVID, I panicked and I was like, buy everything from the grocery store. So I bought like a month's worth of groceries. And then like 5 days later, I'm asking my wife, where are all the snacks? And she's like, you ate them. They're gone.
Yeah.
It's been bad since then.
All right, man. Well, it's getting late, and I want to thank you for coming on here and sharing your insight into what it's like running a toy store. I don't know if everyone out there finds it interesting, but I do, and I hope even though you're not a sponsor, I hope that you get there and one day are up there with Big Bad and Entertainment Earth and stuff.
Thank you.
I mean, there's opportunity because, we've seen certain e-tailers kind of collapse. You mentioned Megalopolis, which again, I can't based only outside looking in, but with them, I felt like their biggest problem was they didn't build a good, strong foundation. Like I view it like a house. If you don't have a good foundation, it doesn't matter what you put on top. And Megalopolis, they spent a lot of money on advertising. They spent a lot of money, getting their name brand recognition out there and everything. But I don't think they put much into the foundation. And so when things started to go a little south, the foundation collapsed and everything kind of came down on them. So, I don't think they set out to rip people off, but like I said before, when things go bad, they go bad pretty quick. So
they do. But they're a good example. So their financial information is public record because of their bankruptcy. Their last year in business, their best year, they did $650,000 in sales, not profit. To put it in comparison, I hit $650,000 for 2023, I think in July. So like I'm going to do about 1.1 this year. So think about that. Those guys had a full staff, a full marketing team, a warehouse with a warehouse team, and a retail store on half of my sales that I'm working out of my house. That was their problem. They just didn't understand the idea of overhead and thought that they could operate at a loss and that would be okay.
Yeah, I felt like they basically operated on investment money, not actual profit, and eventually the well ran dry on them.
And that's what happens. I've seen it happen a million times.
Yeah. One thing I will say, and maybe it's kept me small, but like I've never borrowed a single penny for I started from scratch and basically built up. So, if things ever one day go south and I have to shut down, I'm not going to owe anybody any money or anything. So, and that's always been kind of important to me. I mean, I know a lot of businesses, they run on, they borrow money or they get investment capital or whatever, and then they expand. But I've just always been like kind of proud that I basically built everything from scratch. Yeah.
You should be. Like for me, I got the last check we got for COVID, $7,000. That was my seed money. My grand total I ever put into this was exactly to the penny $17,000. That includes all the YouTube equipment, everything. And everything else has been incremental growth. And I too have always been concerned about like, all right, if shit goes to hell, what do? I've always managed to keep my inventory levels above my pre-order levels. So if the crap hit the fan tomorrow and I was not able to sell another toy, I have enough inventory to sell off to another store to cover all my pre-orders. So I would never have an issue like that because I always am cognizant of that, because I never want to be that person where you're screwing people over. It's just not right.
Yeah, it's got to be horrible because like I don't think any of these guys set out, like I said, to rip people off, but they get so over their head and like they just really don't have any way of. I mean, and I knew more about Megalopolis because they were a sponsor of ours, but like the other one was a Dorkside that went under last year. Like, they had made kind of a name for themselves in the realms of collectibles, but I don't know.
See, I have more insight on them because I have a couple former major employees that I kind of work with to get information from. And same deal with them. Like for them, that was a situation where they just owner, from what I understand, completely mismanagement because their last year in sales, even they were super high up. I just reached 2019 Dorkside level. So I'm like, yeah, I'm 2019 Dorkside sales. But like, it was just a case of when you decide to scale too big, too quick, you go from working out of a 2-car garage to a giant warehouse, you're asking for trouble. And that's where my respect for Big Bad comes in, because they have done every step perfectly. They just have been so smart about it. And that's just the way to go. I hate to like gush about a competitor, but they do everything right. There's nothing else I can say about it. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I mean that as a small business, at least for me, keeping overhead as low as possible has always been a key of me being able to keep doing this. So again, maybe it's kept me smaller than I could have been, but it's also, and I don't want to say playing it safe, but I guess to some extent it is kind of playing it safe, because like you say, I don't want to ever be in that position where I'm having to rip people off or something because I can't afford to pay somebody back or something. But
I shared a story after Dorkside closed, and I think it's still up on a live stream somewhere. My dad closed his diner in 1990. He owed the IRS, we'll call them some unsavory Italian people. They were the mob. And he owed all of his employees, and he put his employees first. Now, granted, that was also the smallest number that he owed them, but he paid all of them before he paid the other people. And speaking of irony, he put the IRS above the mafia as far as danger goes, whatever that tells you. But it's always been really important to me to never be in that situation. My dad was a fantastic people person, but he was not a good business person. So I hope that I can kind of bring the balance of that. I'll never be as good at dealing with people and customers as him, but when it comes to kind of keeping things balanced, I think that's my gift. But yeah, it's a scary thing. It really is.
Yeah. And like I said, going back to what I said earlier, there's not a lot of security, and that things could be going good, great, and then bam, and they go down south quick. So
I think you just got to keep your mindset that it could. If you've ever seen Casino, I always think of the ending scene where De Niro ends up working for some mom and pop like sports book because he could still pick winners. Like, I kind of always view, like, in the end, worst case scenario for me is I end up flipping burgers on a grill because I'm still the best at that, at least.
Yeah. I mean, again, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been out of the job market for at least 12, 15
awesome.
years. So, which is, you're right, it's great. But like, if I ever had to go back and get a job somewhere, I do work, like, I mean, obviously I go work at Walmart or Target or something, but like, like you say on your resume, you've been your own business for like this many years. It's like, why would I hire you type thing. So,
and it's hard to go back and take, like, if you go back into that corporate grind, the part that's really hard that I see being really hard is the part where it's like you listen to somebody who has a third of the experience of you and has bad ideas, but your job is to make those crappy ideas work and you're accountable for them. That's where I'm just like, no, please don't ever send me back to that.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, again, thank you for coming on tonight. Best of luck with everything. And, if you guys haven't, check out Nerdzoic. There's a link to his store in this video description. So, help out the small business guy. And I think we'll leave it at that.
Thanks, everybody. It was great talking. I had a blast.
All right, man. Thanks, everybody. Till next time, I'll catch you guys later. Hey, thanks for watching today's video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification so alerted every time I upload a new video. And be sure to head over to the Toy News International and Marvelous News Message Boards communities. It's a great place to talk toys and win cool contests like $100 store credits to Big Bad Toy Store. And remember, action figures are great.
All right.